Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use that promo code DNVR20 because you'll get 20% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I am your host, Drew Creasman. I am the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. Going to be riding solo on this one and taking a little bit of time to discuss the Colorado Rockies 1-0 loss to the San Diego Padres in a really, really well-pitched ball game by everybody that took the mound out there tonight for both teams. Just ended up coming down to one of those games somebody was going to have to win or lose, obviously, right? There's not a ton to dive into here because neither team got a whole lot going. I'll try to focus in on sort of the big moments of the game. Therefore, and I'll answer Joseph's question here to begin because it really was my biggest one, which was why Estevez again. Now, I am not Estevez has had a couple of real tough luck big innings go against him recently. And I am not of the mind that he is a problem as a pitcher. In fact, I still think that he is one of the four guys in the Rockies bullpen that you've got to have the most trust in moving forward. Now, he's probably very comfortably in fourth place, but I think that that's where he is. And when he's fully rested, that's fine. I thought that Dodgers series, mostly terrible luck, got the best of him. But he's pitched so much lately, I think it was highly, highly questionable. And since I see the question coming in here early, and I've just got to answer it when it's asked, Sean, you can get this shirt at DNVRLocker.com. And you can get discounts on them sometimes, though I don't think there's one right now for this one if you're a member of the DNVR. But we often do discounts on the shirts. We have a deal every week for a different piece of merch that we do. This is my favorite one with all of the team logos in it. Technically, it's for the Denver Sports Podcast that we do every Friday where all the sports beats get together and talk. Hopefully everyone listens into that. Anyway, back to the game. Very questionable, I thought. Now, Estevez came out still pumping in, 97, 98. Looking or being gassed did not appear to be his problem. I will just say I agree with you, Joseph, in that I questioned it the moment that it happened, simply because, one, I thought, Givens very easily could have gone back out there for another one. And two, Estevez has pitched so much lately, 3 of the last 4 ball games, now 4 of the last 5 ball games. I just figured he wasn't going to be used. In fact, early in the broadcast on the AT&T Sports Network, I think Drew Goodman said that they didn't even expect Estevez to be available tonight. Now, I'm not surprised that he was available, and I know that he's a workhorse and Mud Black trusts him. And again, he was pumping in his stuff, and both of the hits that he gave up were, again, kind of tough luck. It may sound like I'm making excuses for the guy, but you can go in and launch angles and expected batting averages on all this stuff. Like he didn't get hit hard. He made his pitch to Greg Garcia, who just happened to hit it away from the shift, right? And the ball that Jurickson Profar hit was 75 miles an hour off the bat. The thing I didn't like there was pitch selection. He threw him a changeup. That's what Profar got. And Profar was out on his front foot and didn't put a confident swing on it. He just happened to get it well enough. It landed down the right field line. Again, it wasn't, it was a good hit from Profar, but it wasn't a terrible pitch from Estevez, except that he threw the changeup when he'd been blowing him away with the fastball. And I just don't think Profar was going to be able to catch up with a well-located Carlos Estevez fastball. And if he could have kept it low, I think he's going to pound it in the ground for a double play, a likely double play. Could also get through for a single, and then, you're first and third there. But the Rockies' defense is really what cost them there in the ninth. Not their defense, like ability, their defensive setup, how they were set up. If they're set up normally on the Greg Garcia play and not in a shift, he's out at first. He's not even on base, and they don't have their super speedster who can't do apparently anything else but just run the bases extraordinarily well. They don't have him available to do that. And then again, even if Garcia still does that great piece of hitting on the changeup down and in and puts it to right field, the Rockies are lined up normally in the outfield. It may still be a double, but it's not going to score the guy all the way from first either. So, Estevez is just eating it right now. He'll be fine. He'll get back to what he was doing the last 3 years. I've got no qualms about that because, again, he's still bringing the stuff. And when you have that kind of stuff, eventually you get your outs. But that still doesn't mean that he should have been pitching in that spot in the game there tonight. But Will, I think you point out the more important thing. It's really not about the pitching. You can hyper focus on that all you want, but when nobody scores until the very last play of the game, a lot of it you can blame the offense to some extent. Though I will say Dinelson Lamet pitched a phenomenal baseball game. He was absolutely fantastic. And so, they had their chances against the bullpen. They really should have made some things happen there late. But beyond that, it was really just an extraordinarily well-pitched game from both Kyle Freeland and Dinelson Lamet, and the results showed it. In fact, the Rockies hit Lamet better than the Padres hit Freeland. McMahon had that screamer off the wall that was about a foot away from being a home run. Trevor Story had one that short hopped the wall on a sinker that got in on him at like 99 miles an hour that was in off the plate that somehow Trevor Story managed to turn and drive into the left center field gap for a double. But left center field is not where you want to hit it if you're trying to get a trip around the bases there in San Diego. So a little bit of tough luck there, but also just an extraordinarily well-pitched ball game. And it came down to that final moment. There's really not much more to it. It was almost an absolute disaster if they had lost in the seventh inning with everything that had gone on there with Yency Almonte. I should say around Yency Almonte. None of that was Yency Almonte's fault. Nolan Arenado with the throwing error. Tony Wolters getting all mixed up during what was a botched double steal, where he really should have gotten the out at third, at least an out at second, but instead gave the Padres an extraordinary advantage with runners at second and third and only one out for Manny Machado. Well, actually, it was for Fernando Tatis, who Almonte wisely sort of worked around there and then was able to get a little bit of luck going the Rockies' way on that one because Machado scorched that ball, though he should have been out. He should have been called out on strikes right before that on a pitch that Almonte didn't get. Almonte just could not catch a break that inning until the very final play when Machado hit that screamer at Arenado, who made a phenomenal throw. I think I saw the stat cast on it was like 84 miles an hour with no kind of buildup, like on a catch and land and throw back to first base to double off Tatis Jr. And so, that if that had been the inning where the Padres had won the game, you'd be out there saying the Rockies beat themselves. That was terrible. You'd feel really awful about it. As it goes, good piece of hitting against a solid pitch comes after, a break was going to happen one way or another eventually. Goes the Padres' way there in the ninth. But as we've seen now on this entire road trip, the Rockies continuing to play good baseball. Obviously, you want to see more out of the offense. But again, you can't just say stuff like that in a vacuum. Like Lamet was ridiculous tonight. No one was going to put up a bunch of runs against this guy? Could they maybe have figured out a way to scratch a few out? I see people asking about, should Fuentes have been in there over Daniel Murphy? Y'all know my opinion on that already. I've made it as clear as I possibly can. More Fuentes, less Murphy. But I don't think putting in a rookie right-hander who's known more for his defense, who's he's swinging a nice bat right now. But I don't think if you put Fuentes in, it's the magical cure against what this kid had going tonight. Tough break for McMahon, hitting the ball 102 miles an hour and up into the air, and ended up with a single out of it. And the game-winning hit was 75-mile-an-hour blooper into right field. Those are the games you don't mind losing. Those are the games that they weren't playing when everyone was rightfully freaking out over the terrible stretch, right? Because it evolved from good losses into ugly, bad losses into a monstrosity of an embarrassing loss. And then it turned all around like immediately, right? They came back, they beat the Giants. Then they go out, LA, play good games in all three, very easily could have swept the Dodgers. Start out here tonight, and you're looking at a ball game where one or two breaks go your way. That McMahon ball gets out, that Story ball gets out. Either Estevez makes a better pitch there, or you leave in Givens, you go to Bard. Again, I think that's very fair critique. I'm not trying to let Bud Black off the hook for that when I point out that I still think Carlos Estevez is going to be a productive pitcher for the Colorado Rockies this season. That was just a bad spot to put the kid in, I think. But beyond that, what are you going to do? It's a really good baseball game. That was an extremely well played baseball game, except, as I mentioned there, in the seventh, when the Rockies made two very strange mistakes that they were lucky didn't end up costing them the game. Something else ended up costing them the game. Playing well, and you build confidence on that. Obviously, the big thing here, the one guy that we've got to tip our cap to the most, and I don't have a Breck brew. I've had plenty lately. It was time for a little bit of a break for me from the Breck brew. Just a one day, just taking it off for just a minute here. So I don't have a toast my glass to Freeland, but I don't have a hat either. So I don't know I usually tip my cap or toast my glass. I've got neither. But Kyle Freeland, after going innings his last time out and just getting rocked, having nothing. And the time before that, he'd been really iffy too. Not terrible, just iffy. And then all of his other starts before that, quality start Kyle, right? And then two kind of off the wagon. I don't think that's quite the right phrase here, but it works if you make it. And then this 6 innings, shutout baseball, 3 hits, all of them singles, nothing hit extraordinarily well or hard, not a ton of confident swings by the Padres. Again, a little bit of bad fortune to get into the one real jam. He was there in the 5th, probably uncorked his best pitch of the season so far in a 2-strike slider to Manny Machado. Yeah, runners at 2nd and 3rd. That was huge. Absolutely huge there to keep it scoreless. That was a beautiful pitch, too. Just really a slider that started on the inner half of the plate, looked like a fastball cut really, really late, dove at the back foot. They call that the Hall of Fame pitch. If you can execute a back foot slider that looks like a fastball on the inside part of the plate that long to big power guys who feast on inside fastballs like Nolan Arenado does, like we saw Trevor Story do tonight, like Manny Machado has done throughout his career. And in a spot where he needed a strikeout, and he's not a strikeout pitcher primarily. We know that. Kyle Freeland went to a slider that was just filthy. And seeing him do that with confidence means good things, again, for your Rockies moving forward, whether or not they can make noise this year or, Kyle Freeland's going to be around for a while, and every positive sign out of him is a really positive sign for your Rockies. And I think we can, again, pretty confidently say he's put his disaster of a 2019 season firmly behind him. He is your draft king of the game. Again, remember to use that the promo code. What is it again? The promo code DNVR over at DraftKings when you're hooking up with all of those bets. You're betting on who's going to be the next draft king of the game. Had to be Kyle Freeland, though. You've got to give an honorable mention to both Yency Almonte and Mychal Givens. I mean, it was just and you could go over to the other side and give honorable mentions to at least one to Lamet as well. When you're throwing 99 all over the place like he was, there were a couple of times he was effectively wild as well, but he just didn't give the Rockies mistakes to hit. Maybe made in the strike zone. Now, he threw some pitches way out of the zone. Every once in a while, he'd just spike one. But in the zone, Lamet made maybe 4 mistakes tonight. Nolan got a hanger right in the middle of the plate that he just missed. That's the only one that stands out in my mind as usually you're going to see 10, 12 of those games for both teams where there's a pitch down the middle and the guy just fouls it right back to the the backstop, or he hits a screamer right at, Machado hit a screamer right at the third baseman, but that wasn't a bad pitch either. But you're going to see that, right? And there just wasn't really for either team tonight. I'll take a look at the hard hit balls from StatCast. Really not very many. The Padres had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hard hit balls in the game. The Rockies had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 hard hit balls in the game. I mean, that's what we saw, right? A near stalemate. And then it didn't even come down to hard hit balls. It came down to hit them where they ain't, away from the shift, ball game. If they respond the way they did in the Dodgers series, they can still very much win this one. As I've said, they don't need to win this series. You got to try to grab a game here, and you got to play good baseball in all 3 of them. Keep your confidence level high. At some point, Nolan's going to go off, and so will this team right along with him. Until then, keep everybody else where they're at right now. I'm going to make this one a short one. For those of you listening to the podcast, hang out. Got a few more things I want to talk about on the other side. For those of you catching us here on the live, just want to say thank you so much for doing so. If you're not catching us on the live, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and hit that bell icon, because you'll get a notification whenever we do go live, which is after every single Rockies game. Win, lose, cancel it, whatever. We've gone live after every one. I've been here for all but one. Oh, Joseph, sorry, I didn't see your question. Yes, I'll just say I do think the Rockies are going to make a bunch of more moves in this offseason, especially if they continue to play well, get themselves comfortably into the playoffs, and end the season feeling good about themselves. There's moves to be made. There's money that will be available that hasn't been available before, that was going to people like Brian Shaw and Jake McGee and Wade Davis and Ian Desmond and Daniel Murphy. Even if those guys are still on the team, they'll be making dramatically less money, Murphy and Desmond, and it's possible neither are. Whatever it is, it's not a money problem anymore. It's just a roster spot problem. So they'll have money to spend. They'll have players to trade if they want. Yes, I think the Rockies will be very active in the offseason if they finish the season well. So stick with us. Let's see what happens. Like I said, if you're listening to the podcast, hang out for just a minute. We're going to have some conversation on the other side. If you're joining us here for the live, thank you so much for hanging out. It was a tough one, but baseball will happen again tomorrow, and we will see you for that. Thank you, and have a good night.